Hollywood's golden age was built on perfection, glamour polished to the point of illusion. Every photograph, interview, and public appearance was staged to maintain a dream that audiences around the world desperately wanted to believe in. Yet behind the shimmer of sequins and the glow of the silver screen, these stars were human, vulnerable to gaffes, accidents, and moments that stripped away their aura of untouchable elegance. From wardrobe malfunctions under the blinding lights of live television to public outbursts that turned beloved idols into cautionary tales, the following moments remind us that even icons stumble. These are the 13 most embarrassing incidents that shook old Hollywood, the slips, the scandals, and the unforgettable blunders that nearly destroyed legends. That if this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. 1. Judy Garland's public breakdown at the London Palladium, 1951. Judy Garland, adored for her golden voice and angelic charm, embodied Hollywood's idea of innocence and perseverance. But by 1951, years of grueling studio control, addiction, and emotional turmoil had begun to unravel her life. During what was supposed to be a glorious comeback at the London Palladium, Garland took the stage to thunderous applause. Yet, as she tried to sing the trolley song, she broke down mid-performance. Her voice faltered, tears streamed down her face, and she stumbled off stage. The audience, initially stunned, eventually applauded her bravery when she returned minutes later to finish the number. The tabloids, however, were merciless. Headlines screamed about Judy's breakdown, mocking her fragility. MGM executives panicked, seeing the incident as proof she was too unstable to insure. But what was meant to humiliate Garland, paradoxically, cemented her humanity. Fans saw her pain, and they loved her even more for it. Garland's fall from grace became her rebirth, an early example of how vulnerability could turn into authenticity long before that word became fashionable. 2. Clark Gable's denture disaster. Few men represented masculinity like Clark Gable. The rugged charm of Gone with the Wind made him Hollywood's ultimate leading man. Yet Gable's most humiliating moment came during an intimate kissing scene with actress Loretta Young. In the heat of the moment, his dental bridge, a partial denture from years of poor dental hygiene and studio stress, slipped loose. The mortified Young reportedly struggled to keep her composure while cameras rolled. For an industry obsessed with physical perfection, this was devastating. MGM's publicity machine worked overtime to bury the story, insisting Gable's maturity was part of his allure. But on set, whispers spread fast. Even decades later, the denture incident remained an inside joke among crews. Ironically, the mishap humanized him, proving that even Hollywood's king wasn't invincible. Behind the perfect smile was a man patched together by studio illusion and dental glue. 3. Marilyn Monroe's skirt-blowing incident, 1954. It's the most iconic wardrobe malfunction in history. The moment Marilyn Monroe's white dress billowed above a New York subway grate during filming of The 7-Year Itch. What the cameras captured was cinematic history. What happened behind the scenes was chaos. The stunt, orchestrated by director Billy Wilder for publicity, drew hundreds of spectators. Each gust of air sent Monroe's dress flying higher, while her husband Joe DiMaggio fumed in the crowd. The press loved it, flashbulbs popping, men cheering, Monroe giggling. But later that night, DiMaggio's rage boiled over into a violent argument that marked the beginning of their marital collapse. Monroe was humiliated, reduced to a caricature of sexuality she didn't fully control. Yet that very image, her dress caught midair, smile frozen between embarrassment and power, became one of the most enduring symbols of cinema. The moment meant to expose her, instead immortalized her. 4. Red Skelton's live TV slip, 1951. Comedian Red Skelton was known for slapstick brilliance and heartwarming characters, but live television was unforgiving. During a 1951 broadcast, he lost his balance, knocked over part of the set, and muttered an expletive, all while millions watched live. In an era when profanity was taboo, sponsors panicked, NBC received complaints, and newspapers debated whether live comedy was too risky, the fallout was immediate. The next week, CBS instituted the now standard 7-second broadcast delay to prevent future mishaps. Skelton was embarrassed, deeply apologetic, and briefly suspended. But in hindsight, his mistake changed the entire industry. What began as a humiliating stumble became a turning point in television history, a reminder that comedy, like life, thrives on unpredictability. 5. Bette Davis's on-set tantrum. Bette Davis never hid her fiery temper. Her refusal to be handled made her both revered and feared in Hollywood. But one outburst on the set of All About Eve nearly cost her career. During a tense shoot, Davis erupted over a lighting change, throwing her script and storming off set. Crew members described her tirade as volcanic, the studio's golden girl transformed into a force of raw fury. The tabloids had a field day. Diva Davis meltdown, one headline blared. Yet, instead of retreating, Davis owned it. She later joked, "If I'm difficult, it's because I give a damn." Her candor turned public perception in her favor. She wasn't a hysterical woman, she was a professional demanding respect. What was meant to shame her became an early feminist statement about power in a male-dominated industry. 6. Marlon Brando's forgotten lines at the Oscars. Marlon Brando was a revolutionary. His raw, method acting changed film forever. But during the 1955 Oscars, he froze. Nominated for On the Waterfront, Brando forgot his prepared remarks and stood in awkward silence, fumbling through a half-hearted thank you. Cameras captured every uncomfortable second. Critics mocked him for arrogance. Others thought he was high. But privately, Brando was mortified. The man who redefined screen realism had been undone by real-life anxiety. Years later, Brando reflected that the moment taught him humility, that fame's spotlight was the most dangerous drug. Ironically, the blunder deepened his mystique, reinforcing his reputation as Hollywood's unpredictable genius. 7. Elizabeth Taylor's broken heel at the Oscars, 1961. Elegance incarnate, Elizabeth Taylor glided across red carpets like royalty. But during the 1961 Academy Awards, disaster struck. Her stiletto snapped mid-walk, sending her tumbling in front of cameras. For a few seconds, the crowd gasped. Paparazzi lenses caught the star sprawled across the floor, dress askew, dignity momentarily lost. Yet Taylor's reaction was pure grace. She laughed, accepted a helping hand, and turned the incident into charm. The photos, instead of mocking her, became proof of her charisma. Fans loved that she could stumble and still sparkle. In a world obsessed with flawlessness, Taylor's fall proved that perfection is overrated. Sometimes it's how you recover that defines you. 8. Frank Sinatra's public brawl, 1947. Frank Sinatra's temper was as famous as his voice. At a nightclub in 1947, the singer's feud with a gossip columnist boiled over into a fistfight. Cameras flashed, drinks flew, and Sinatra, then America's clean-cut crooner, looked more like a street brawler than a gentleman. The scandal nearly derailed his career. Radio stations boycotted his songs, sponsors withdrew, and critics labeled him Hollywood's bad boy. But Sinatra, ever the showman, used the controversy to reinvent himself. The rebellious edge that once threatened his image became part of his legend. What began as humiliation turned into brand evolution. OL Blue Eyes was now dangerous, magnetic, and real. 9. Lucille Ball's hair dye disaster. Lucille Ball's fiery red hair became one of television's most recognizable trademarks, but it started as an accident. Early in her career, Ball's natural brunette locks were lightened for camera tests, but a botched chemical mix turned them an unnatural orange. She was horrified until MGM executives declared it her signature look. Embarrassed at first, Ball later leaned into the image, turning that mistake into a marketing weapon. By the time I Love Lucy aired, her hair color wasn't a blunder, it was branding genius. Her embarrassment became innovation, proving that sometimes the most mortifying mistakes create the most iconic identities. 10. Rock Hudson's on-set mishap. Before his tragic personal life became tabloid fodder, Rock Hudson faced a different kind of humiliation, a slapstick-level blunder, during a romantic scene in Pillow Talk. As cameras rolled, Hudson leaned in for a kiss, only to trip on a misplaced prop and send both himself and Doris Day crashing into a dessert cart. The take was ruined, the crew howled with laughter, and Hudson turned crimson. The footage never made the final cut, but rumors spread quickly. Yet, instead of shying away, Hudson laughed at himself in interviews, calling it the sweetest fall I ever took. His self-deprecating charm not only salvaged his dignity, but made him even more beloved. In a studio era obsessed with control, Hudson's authenticity was refreshing. 11. Sophia Loren side-eye moment. At a 1957 Hollywood party, photographers captured Sophia Loren glaring at Jane Mansfield's plunging neckline. The photo went viral, long before viral existed. Loren was mortified, insisting she wasn't judging but simply surprised. But the image became one of pop culture's most famous snapshots, the side-eye scene around the world. Though embarrassing, it humanized Loren, the poised Italian goddess caught in a moment of genuine disbelief. The photo's endurance proved that one candid expression could outlive entire careers. 12. Joan Fontaine's Academy Awards mix-up. Joan Fontaine, nominated for Suspicion, experienced one of the most awkward moments in Oscar history. When her name was called, she hesitated, unsure if she'd truly won. Her sister, Olivia de Havilland, was seated just feet away, also nominated. Fontaine's pause was brief, but it looked icy on camera. The public interpreted it as arrogance or sibling rivalry, fueling one of Hollywood's most infamous family feuds. Fontaine later admitted she was simply shocked and terrified of offending her sister. But perception was stronger than truth. For years, the moment overshadowed her.